Good afternoon, everybody. We'll just wait another minute just to allow others to arrive. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Deborah Swift. I am the Lenovo Business Development Manager here at Ingram Micro New Zealand. I would like to welcome you all here today to the Lenovo Intel Commercial Workstation webinar. Today's webinar will be presented by our Lenovo Workstation Channel Manager for Australia and New Zealand, Pankaj Gupta. Before Pankaj begins, I would like to let you all know a few housekeeping points. So please note that today's webinar is being recorded. If you have any questions during the presentation, please feel free to submit them at any time using the Q&A section. So you will find the Q&A button on the top of the chat tab, just next to the live indicator at the top of your screen, the Q&A button. So feel free to write and submit questions throughout the webinar, but we will, however, answer your questions at the end of the webinar during the Q&A section. And don't forget, we are going to be giving away Prezi cards today to 2 lucky attendees. The draw will be done at the end of the webinar. So now I would like to welcome Pankaj to present to you all.
Thank you, Deborah. Good morning, all. Good morning. Welcome to the webinar. My name is Pankaj Gupta, for those that don't know who I am. I will be going over the workstation kind of portfolio and a bit of insight. So once again, welcome all. Thank you for your time. As Deborah mentioned, please feel free to drop your questions in the chat box, and then we'll get an opportunity at the end to go over it. Okay, so without further ado, let me start. Now, I would like to I do have an agenda, right, and just quickly going through that. So for those that are new to workstations, and we do take the opportunity to talk about what actually is a professional workstation, who actually needs them, right? It is quite niche. We talk about the type of customers, we talk about the different types of industry verticals where you will find opportunities for workstations. What's actually driving the workstation growth is very critical for us to understand where that growth is coming from today, in the past, so that we can obviously be prepared, and obviously where it's coming from in the future. Then we'll go straight into the workstation portfolio. Not a very extensive deep dive into the product. It's a very high level. I'm not going to get into too much technical details. This particular webinar is to give you a little bit of insight, as I mentioned, for those who haven't had the opportunity to sell a workstation in the past, who may have been intimidated. We'll try and obviously make it easier for you to understand the market and how you can approach your customers, or look out for new opportunities. At the same time, give you an opportunity to ask questions, and then we can have some further discussions, on a one-to-one basis. So moving along, what is a professional workstation? So at its core, a workstation, or professional workstation as we call it, it's not a piece of furniture by any means. Some people still get confused, funnily enough, but at its core, professional workstation is a PC, but we regard that as a premium PC. Now, why do we call that a premium PC? Workstations are defined by powerful, reliable, flexible features and components, all right, from very high core count CPUs to using professional grades discrete graphic GPUs, graphical processing units. So they do come in a whole flavor of different form factors. In fact, some of the workstations that we have actually have a unique form factor, and I'll definitely take the opportunity to share some of that during the webinar today. They are designed from ground up. So based on what our customers, and when we talk about the kind of verticals, the kind of professionals that use workstations, we need to understand their requirements, what are they looking for? Obviously, performance and reliability are probably two of the most critical things. And then we take that, and then when we're designing our workstations, we need to take all of that into consideration. They are designed to meet the highest standards, and of course, the most taxing applications. So application, it is quite critical when we talk about workstations. So there are various things, and I guess this is where, when we talk of workstations, we need to kind of link a couple of things together, and marry them. And that's where it becomes quite interesting, quite exciting. And if you already have a lot of customers in various different industries, once again, right, this will help you to answer some of those questions, or at least go and open up a conversation. So the kind of customers we're talking of are those that are doing scientific research, financial analysis, 3D CAD design, simulation. Simulation is a very big industry. It obviously spans across many different verticals. It is growing at double-digit growth. So simulation, we're talking about generative AI, and 3D rendering as well. So I talked about the software component of it, the ISV, independent software vendors. All of our workstations that we design and test before we bring to market are all certified, right? We'll go into that into the next slide. So these are some of the ISV logos. By no means these are all of them. These are probably some of the most common. You might be familiar with them. No doubt you'd be familiar with Autodesk applications like AutoCAD, maybe Revit. We talk about Adobe, Premiere Pro. These are Adobe and Autodesk probably have, in their own right, they're probably leaders in their market, and you will see that most of the users that are doing at professional level are probably using a workstation to derive the maximum performance out of the workflow. Okay, so who needs workstations? We've already kind of touched upon it, but I want to bring it all together here. We classify different verticals, right? Once again, by no means are there six only verticals. There are many more. Then we can get into sub verticals as well, which we'll talk about. But at a very high level, we're talking of media and entertainment. Those kind of customers that are doing animation, broadcast, they're doing movie production, and they're using all the tools, all the latest technology to be able to bring all that together. Architecture, engineering, construction, what we call the AEC, probably represents the largest user base of workstations across the ANZ region. Once again, as I mentioned, some of the most common software applications that are prevalent in the industry are from Autodesk, Dassault with SolidWorks, and many, many more. Then we move on to manufacturing and product design, oil and gas, and of course mining as well. That is definitely an extension of that. And within that, we can also talk about any other energy utilities. Then we move on to healthcare and life sciences and data science. Life sciences or healthcare and AI are probably some of the recent verticals that have shown a lot of growth over the last couple of years. One, because of COVID, had kind of triggered their acceleration in terms of the development of these applications. And no doubt we do see a lot of workstation applications in that particular industry. So this is just an example of deep diving into two of the verticals that I've just spoken about. One is the media entertainment, right, and the architectural engineering construction. We do have a lot of material to be able to support you or provide you with some kind of insights so you understand this a little bit better. So when you're talking to your customers, obviously, then you can have that conversation with them. So in both of these, there are many different types of users, right? And even in a particular project, right, there could be different users as part of that workflow that could have different requirements. Okay, so something like a movie production, obviously there are many different types of artists who could be doing some very basic storytelling, storyboard kind of work. There could be some people who are doing the editing, some people who are actually doing the graphic design, some people doing the rendering. Similarly with the AEC, when we're talking about different types of projects, there are many different users that kind of create the whole workflow. So when we're identifying opportunities, and this webinar is obviously not to talk about the insights, but also look at the aspects where we can actually help you to have that conversation, and look for those opportunities within your customer base. So the key verticals that I spoke about, AEC, oil and gas, manufacturing, others that I've kind of highlighted, utilities, government education, very, very big indeed, media, entertainment, and AI. Within the government education, particularly with the education, you'll see that they use they will actually use different types of software and software from other industries that we've seen within AEC, or it could be M&E as well. There could be a marketing department, there could be engineering department, there could be a finance department. So they could all be requiring something like a workstation type of solution. We look at the different type of markets in within those each of those verticals, right? So I'm just going to take an example. The top one, for instance, AEC, architects, as I mentioned, engineers. We have technical service providers. We talk about the whole BIM modeling as well nowadays, where they're doing a lot of online collaboration. They're using online tools to be able to do collaborative work and design and review a lot of their work in the cloud or online. So what are they actually doing? They're doing a lot of 2D, 3D engineering drawings. They're using schematics. They're rendering. They're using AR, VR for a lot of their visualizations. They're doing a lot of illustrations as well. And then we move to the application. So what are the applications that are being used by that particular vertical who are doing that type of work within those markets? And there's a list of those kind of applications. So this kind of maps out at a very high level, what are some of the key verticals and what are the applications and how did we actually get there? So moving along, you probably heard this word which is quite used quite synonymously nowadays. When I talk to a lot of my partners or customers, we always try and understand what the requirements are. What is a persona, right? Now, traditionally, all of those verticals that I mentioned, because of the ISV applications, they do take into consideration or they do leverage the discrete GPU for performance acceleration, right? They are what we call GPU optimized. Of course, there are a lot of applications that are not GPU optimized, so you wouldn't actually try and sell somebody a workstation where they would not benefit from that discrete GPU. However, what we are seeing, right, there are super users, what we call super users, right, who generally may not fall in that category, but may require a workstation. And the primary reason is because the workstation, as I mentioned before, could have a high core count CPUs. They have more memory, they have more storage, better reliability. So from that perspective, also what we're seeing is those kind of power users are also requiring workstations where they are benefiting by spending a little bit more in terms of investment and deriving the performance that they require. So it's also very important. So video conferencing is probably one of them. We use video conferencing now in our daily workflow. It doesn't mean that we're not using a specific ISV application per se. I'll give you another example of this later when we actually go into that portfolio. Just a little bit of technical comparison between CPU and GPU, right? And why a GPU and what makes a GPU obviously or provides that performance acceleration. So a couple of key things here. CPU is what we call a central processing unit, and a GPU is a graphics processing unit. At the heart of it, they are essentially core engines. CPU can go up from 4 to 120 cores. In a normal standard desktop, you might go up to about 16 cores based on the latest Intel CPU. But in a workstation, which we'll talk about, which I'll cover very briefly, like a P10, for instance, we can actually put two Intel CPUs, the Sapphire Rapids. Each CPU is 60 cores, so it'll provide up to 120 cores. Now, in comparison, if you look at a GPU, right, some of the high-end GPUs that we can actually support and configure in a workstation, they'll go up to 1,000 cores, right? So you can see the comparison. CPUs are generally low latency, however, GPU high throughput. Of course, when you're comparing a very high-end GPU, the cost or the investment that is required is obviously in comparison to a CPU is a lot higher. CPUs are generally serial, right? They're good for serial processing. However, a GPU for parallel processing and highly matrixed operations. When we talk about matrix operations, we're talking about NVIDIA when they introduce their Turing architecture of GPUs, and they introduce tensor cores, which are dedicated for doing matrix operations or matrix data flow, which essentially ties into your AI, your inferencing, your data analytics, so forth. Okay, so what's actually driving workstation growth in the marketplace? Um, I actually looked at this post-COVID. It was actually because during COVID or prior to COVID, the situation or scenario was quite different. And it doesn't just apply to workstation, it does apply to other industries as well. And I'm sure that you probably concur with me. So specifically with workstations, 3D software influencing growth, right? As I mentioned, AEC, where a lot of 3D design work, a lot of 3D simulation, rendering, all within that industry is a very mature industry across the ANZ region. And that's continues to drive that growth, right? That's where majority of our user base or install base kind of resides. Number two, the demand for mobile solutions. As I mentioned, post-COVID, we have actually seen the ratio of mobile workstation versus desktop workstations actually kind of flip. So prior to COVID, the percentage was probably 60%, 65% desktop versus 35% mobile, but now it's quite reversed, right? Because of that remote working, because of people are kind of used to that. They need that portability. OEM manufacturers like Lenovo, when it comes to workstations, obviously have put a lot of emphasis, a lot of R&D work in making our mobile workstations much more affordable, number one, and more powerful at the same time. Number three, we talk about new technology. So, over the past 5 years, and I've been in Lenovo for about 5 years now, we have introduced new technologies. We do have some unique solutions that Lenovo have introduced in the marketplace. And what we see from time to time, obviously, with new technology being introduced, it actually provides better performance at the same price point or the same investment. Demand for customized solutions. Workstations, if anybody is familiar with the workstation market, you will know that 90% of the workstations that we sell into the marketplace are customized. Because of that user persona, the user profile, many different users have different requirements. We do need to manufacture based on customer demand. So it becomes a bit of a challenge, but at the same time, we are up to the mark in terms of helping our customers get what they want, right? One of the things that I talk to a lot of our partners as well as customers is that when you're actually trying to recommend something to a customer, you need to take into consideration the investment that they're going to be making, whether it's 3 years or 5 years. Very important to understand, because if they are using ISV, they need to also understand what the roadmap looks like from their software provider, if there are going to be any changes, and if the resources or the system requirements are also going to be changing along the way. So we need to take that into consideration. Finally, new verticals, which I've already kind of emphasized. AI and health, these are some of the new markets that are also driving or contributing to that workstation growth that we're seeing. Okay, so why workstations and why now, right? So this is obviously from your perspective, from a business perspective, workstations represents probably about 5 of the total commercial client system sold, right? In terms of the PC market that we see, right, across both desktops and as well as mobile. Even though it only probably represents 5% in terms of volume, we do actually see double that in terms of revenue. So the average unit price of a workstation is twice as much. If you average it out, obviously, some of the workstations that we sell are probably $10,000-$20,000, right? It all depends on how it's going to be configured, depends on who the customer is, what type of software. Now, trust me, some of the softwares that the users are using actually go beyond that price, right? Because they are very, very specialized. So 10% of the total volume, but 13% of the average GP as well. So, for your business, if you are looking to obviously become more profitable, and if you're not currently looking at Workstation, then perhaps this is something that you should be considering as well. In terms of competition, the three main vendors for Workstation who hold the lion's share of the total market are Dell, HP, and Lenovo. We do see some of the tier two competitors with the likes of Acer, Asus, and Apple, which probably represents the minor or very small share of that total workstation market. Now, workstations offer the combination of performance, scalability, professional stability for the most demanding data-intensive workflows. I'll put that statement in there because obviously it kind of represents what a workstation is and how it can benefit your customers. Okay, so now we go into the portfolio. So this is what our desktop workstation portfolio looks like. On the left-hand side, we have our P3 series, which represents our Intel Core I base. We do and are selling currently the 14th gen. So we have the P3 Tiny, the P3 Ultra, the P3 Tower. In the middle, we have our Intel Xeon-based solutions, the P5, the P7, and the P10. And on the extreme right-hand side is our P2. We are using one of our old chassis. The P2, we have kind of retrofitted that for a specific market, like education, for instance. So we do have more flexibility in terms of customization. We can provide a P2 solution to a customer where we are in a competitive situation and a slightly more economical. However, keeping performance and reliability at the top in terms of at the top of our approach. This slide I share with a lot of my partners and customers because what this does, it kind of links what I've spoken previously about in terms of the ISVs, right? The different ISV partners that we work with, the ones that we actually certify, and how we kind of recommend our customers who are looking or have those kind of applications or using those kind of applications to the solutions that we have. We do make a lot of recommendations. And once again, because of the workflow, because of the application, we can identify very quickly what solution would be the most the most right solution for the customer. So in terms of positioning, we start at the bottom, the P2, the P3 series, as I mentioned, the Intel-based entry level. We move to the P5, the P7, and the P10. So I just want to talk quickly about some of these products. The one in the blues are all the Intel-based solutions that we have. The P10 is our only Intel dual CPU. If you are familiar with the previous models that we had, the P720, which is now the P7, was also a dual Intel solution. The 120 cores is actually supported or is available in that P10. Some of the technology that we use, the introduction of the P5, the P7, P10. So I'd like to talk a little bit in terms of the history of the design and development of those. So we actually partnered with Aston Martin. Aston Martin have been one of our customers for quite some time, but we collaborated with Aston Martin to help us design our P5, P7, and P10 chassis. When we talk about reliability and performance, what's very important, all of our solutions are air-cooled. The maximum intake is very important. So the 3D hex design of the chassis of the front grille that you see has actually been in collaboration with Aston Martin. They've been manufacturing cars for many, many years. We've taken their help, assistance in designing our chassis to ensure that we have maximum air intake and maximum hot air exhaust at the back as well. So the thermal design of the solution is very, very critical in keeping those nice and cool, and which ultimately will provide that reliability and ongoing performance. The same three solutions that we have, the P5, the P7, and the P10, are all what we call rack optimized as well. So we have the flexibility, or customers have the flexibility to use them on the desktop. However, if they do want to actually, if they do have a data center environment and they want to be able to use them as a rack solution, they can. We do provide that optional solution. Finally, a lot of our customers talk about remote workstation solutions. So this is just an example of the different types of solutions where we talk to various different type of customers. And we could do the same with yours as well. If they do come up with something a little bit more challenging for us, we can provide that. Even if we don't provide a solution ourselves from Lenovo, we can actually help you and guide you. So we are working with third-party vendors, whether it's software or hardware, to be able to bring together a total solutions. And one of them obviously being the remote workstation solutions. If you wanted to put any of those high-end, the P10, the P7, highly configured solution in a data center, and if you've got mobile users, for instance, they can actually dial in and use the resources to be able to a lot of their the GPU processing, and that's what entails. So it could be one-on-one, it could be one-on-many. Software application that we use is called a TGX from an organization called Megdyne, which utilizes the NVIDIA decoder and decoder chips on the cards themselves for a lot of that compression to help keep that latency down and performance as high as possible. So we look at the high-end workstations that we have kind of side by side. As I have already mentioned, the P10 is our Intel dual socket. The P7 is our Intel Xeon W3400 series up to 56 cores. Intel have actually released the W3500 series, which goes up to 60 cores. On the P5, we have the Intel Xeon W2400 series CPU, which Intel have actually just released a 2500 series as well. If you look at the GPUs, just to give you a comparison, the P5, we can configure that with one RTX A6000, going all the way up to the P10, which can actually be configured up to 4 RTX 6080. The other unique thing that we've introduced in our workstation is that we've actually provided redundant power supply in our P10. A lot of our customers are asking for it. One of the things that we don't do, because we do our ISG team do this very well, is provide rack mounted or rack workstation solutions. So however, if a customer doesn't require the Windows Server kind of operating system, they're still looking for something down at a workstation level, we can actually provide that. And with having that dual or redundant power supply, brings us closer to that kind of environment. Looking at the entry-level P3 series, I would like to talk about the P3 Ultra. As I mentioned in my opening as well, we do have unique solutions which are quite exclusive to us. And the P3 Ultra we introduced about 3 years ago. The first version was the P360 Ultra. It is a 4-liter chassis. Now the standard small form factor solution is roughly about 8-liter solution. We said, okay, we're moving away from that. We've come up with this lot smaller box. So I'm sure some people have already had the pleasure of seeing it, but if you haven't, please reach out to me. We do have some demo kit in our local New Zealand pool. I'm sure you can find a lot of customers who would happily use this because it does provide that expanded flexibility and expanded features, which I'll talk about. It has 2 Thunderbolt ports on board. It has 2 Ethernet ports, a 1 gig and a 2.5 gig. The motherboard of that particular solution sits in between the chassis and then components on either side, so it allows for cooling as well. In terms of performance, it's by no means any inferior to a standard small form factor solution. It can still take on, support a lot of the high-end high 65 watt Intel Core CPUs, up to the NVIDIA RTX 4000 small form factor GPU 20 gig solution as well. So as you can see, it can still support and still achieve that high performance at a lot of our customers. Some of the markets that have actually done very well for us in that particular solution would be OEM. We see a lot of video analytics in AI, generative AI, or AI in general. Those kind of organizations are currently evaluating the small form factor because it does provide that compact solution, but provides those extended features, provides the GPU and the CPU performance that they require as well. Okay, moving along into our mobile workstation portfolio. We have effectively 5 in the series: the P14S, the P16S, which are our slimline, excuse me, entry-level products. We have the P16V in the middle there, which is a balance between both performance and price. And of course, if you're looking for that high performance, then we'd consider the P1 and the P16. So just quickly looking at the positioning of these, once again, we can actually marry or map when a customer talks about their ISV or their applications or the workflow with the kind of recommended solution that we would use as a basis or a benchmark to start that conversation. So starting at the bottom in terms of performance, the P14S, P16S, going all the way up to the P16, which is effectively our high performance, high workhorse desktop replacement solution that we have. Okay, so just quickly looking at each one of these, the P14S Gen 5, this is what we call a clean sheet. Our previous version was sharing a chassis with our T-Series solution. We've actually come up with our own unique solution. It has a new aluminium top cover. We're moving away from the plastic covers from a sustainability perspective. This is in fact not a 14, but a 14.5, 16 by 10 display. It will support the latest Intel Core Ultra CPUs, both the H series, obviously, the i5, i7 28 watt, but the P14S will also support the H45 watt Core Ultra 9. Sorry, it shouldn't be my apologies. They should be Core Ultra. And will support just the one GPU, which is the RTX 500 Ada. So those power users that we talked about, in terms of they're not looking for maybe a discrete GPU, but looking for a high performing solution, something like a Core Ultra 9 45 watt for that high performance, in a 14-inch format, then you could easily recommend something like a P14S. We have 2 different battery sizes for that long battery life. If someone is obviously on the road a lot more or requires extended battery life, our P14S, P16S still has the unique native RJ45 port. We have what we call the trapdoor RJ45 port. We have seen our competitor move away from that. The P16V, which I'll talk about in a minute, also does have a full native RJ45 port. So P16S very similar to the P14S in terms of the components that it'll support. One thing which I have forgotten to highlight is both the P14S and P16S now have dual DIMMs. So upgradability is a lot easier. We can populate just with the one DIMM from factory, and the customers still have another one. And the other unique thing is that we are now actually supporting up to 48 gig DIMM memory module. So we can actually maximize the memory in both of these solutions to 96 gigabytes. Okay, the P16V, as I mentioned, this particular solution has been doing very well for us over the last few years because it does provide that balance between performance and value. It will support the 45 watt H series CPU, similar to the P14S and P16S. The other thing that we've managed to do in this particular model is that we've actually extended the higher performing, or the ability to configure our high performing GPU. So this will now support up to the RTX 3008 gig, whereas previously it was limited to only up to 4 gig. So a lot of the customers who wanted a high performing GPU, we had to then upscale them to either a P1 or a P16, but no more, because most of the requirements in terms of the GPU on a mobile workstation kind of goes up to about 8 gigs. So this particular solution represents that unique balance between performance and price. This also does support 5G wireless WAN, as does the P16S. Unfortunately, wireless WAN is not available on our P14S model. The P1 Gen 7, once again, this is a clean sheet, and I'm going to take a couple of minutes to talk a little bit about the P1. This is our premium lightweight performance product. It does support the latest 14 Gen H series CPUs, just like the P16V. We have an extended list of GPU support, both the enterprise or the commercial GPUs, as well as some of the GeForce, like the 4060, the 4070 as well. What we've done with this particular product from the previous generation is that we've actually limited in terms of the enterprise GPUs to the 3000 ADA, right? The previous generation could support up to the 4000 and 5000. Because this is a clean sheet product, and the CPUs actually now are creating more heat, so we're deriving more power from both the CPU and GPU, which then creates a lot of heat. So in order for us to be able to maintain that performance and reliability, we're kind of limiting it to the 3080 GPU. This product doesn't support wireless WAN either, unfortunately. It will support up to 96 gigabytes of memory, just like the previous solution that I've spoken about. Sorry, my apologies. It will support 64 at this point in time, but it does have a unique memory technology, which I'll talk about, which is called the LPCAMM. This stands for low pressure compression attached memory module. So we've partnered with a memory manufacturer called Micron to bring this unique technology for the first time in a workstation kind of solution. This particular slide, as you can see, we do have a lot of components which as a lot of our customers have been asking in terms of user replaceable. So slowly we are actually going down that path to provide our customers with the ability to be able to replace or upgrade components on their own without having to call a service engineer. So let's talk about the LPCAMM a little bit more and the features of this particular technology. So as I mentioned, LPCAMM stands for Low Power Compression Attached Memory Module. It is a new form factor. It's the latest standard for random access memory module in laptops. So the speeds that the LPCAMM can reach are up to about 7,500 mega transfers per second, in comparison to about 6,400 with the standard SODIMMs that you get in the marketplace. It does provide more bandwidth. It does, with that extra memory speed, it'll provide that high bandwidth for a lot of those applications, particularly when they're using a lot of those taxing applications we spoke about. LPCAMM is upgradable, right, as opposed to soldered down memory. So that's another feature of that particular technology. It is actually thinner than the standard SODIMM, so saving a lot of space. So that's why we can actually make our chassis a lot more thinner, so we can actually reduce our Z heights. They can be placed closer to the CPU, right, than standard SODIMMs, reducing the distance the data has to travel in and effectively reducing the latency. With a single module, even though it is a single module, we can actually activate, or it can behave as a dual channel memory, so you can still get better performance and better bandwidth. So what are some of the value propositions of the P1 Gen 7? As I said, and customers or partners that are familiar with this particular product, you will know that this is our performance thin and light product. If you saw the P16V and the P1 Gen 7 side by side, you would not be able to tell that they both have the same 16-inch display. So a lot of our executives or users that are highly mobile, that require a portable solution with the performance. And, the P1 Gen 7 obviously represents a perfect kind of form factor. Those that are looking to show off to the customers, because we have higher resolution displays, we have OLED displays. Whoever's seen this particular product have actually fallen kind of head over heels with the display and the screen, the functionality, the lightweight of this particular product. Finally, in terms of our solutions, we talk about the P16 Gen 2. This is our desktop replacement. This particular product has two boards, so we can have any combination of CPU and GPU. So if customers are looking for that high performing, up to the RTX 5080 16 gig card, then this is probably the way to go. Quite uniquely, this particular model also supports the GeForce RTX 4090, and I do get a lot of requirements. By the way, we do not support the 4090 on any of our desktop workstation solutions. Moving quickly into the graphic, the GPU, in which we've spoken about throughout the session. So we have a whole range of GPUs from NVIDIA that we can support. So this particular chart will quickly identify and say, right, okay, if a customer is looking for a particular GPU, which models will support that particular GPU and how many as well. So if we look at the extreme top left hand, the P10, as I mentioned before, will support up to 4 RTX 6080s, right? Each of those are 48 gigs. If you combine that together, we're talking about 192 gigabytes of video RAM. Going all the way down to the bottom, our P3 Tiny, which is our 1 liter solution, and that will support our T400 and T1000 GPU. Similarly, we look at the mobile workstations. Unfortunately, none of our mobile workstations will support more than one, right? And I hope I don't get any questions, customers coming back and saying, 2 GPUs in a mobile workstations. No. So once again, we have a chart that quickly identifies and maps the GPU against which Lenovo mobile workstation model that they will actually support. We do have other information which I haven't included, which will actually go into the technical aspects and the details of each of those GPUs. Now, quickly, a couple more slides before I finish off. So in terms of marketing resource, where can you find more information? You're most welcome to contact your AE. You're most welcome to contact me for any information. However, if you do require some data, the best place that I could probably recommend would be our PSREF. If you go to the workstation tab that you see there, it'll list all of the models. It'll tell you what are the components, what are the what it will support in some CPU, GPU, memory, the ports, etc., etc. Right? You can actually download a lot of that in terms of a PDF format. If you don't want to direct your customers, you can actually download that document and share it with the customers. If you look at the tabs under each of the models, you'll notice that there's documentation, the supported accessories, what are the services, there are photos as well. You can actually look at some standard configurations of each of those models. The other website that I talk about with a lot of our partners and customers is the ThinkStation-Specs. Now, this is dedicated to workstations only. PSREF will tell you basically what are the CPUs at a very high level, right, and GPUs as well. However, if you've got customers that actually want to know more detailed technical information, specifications of each of the components, then this is probably the website. So for instance, if you're looking at the disk drives, the SSD drives, you want to know what are the data transfer rates, the write, the read, etc. This is the place to go. Now, feel free and comfortable using this website and also recommending it to your customers. Once you go to this website, there are no links to any third-party websites. There are no ads, and there is no pricing either. Right? It's just purely information, technical information about the models and their components. So be rest assured that if customers are asking for detailed information, then this is probably a website that you can use. sorry, I haven't updated the models, but they are updated. As and when we introduce new components, these websites are refreshed on a continuous basis. Same thing with the ISV certifications. If you got customers that are saying this is the application that I use, if you want recommendations, they could use something like this. That brings me to the end. Okay, Deborah, back to you.
Thank you, Pinkesh. Okay, now we will move on to our Q&A session. So if anyone has any questions, if you could just type it into that Q&A button up there on the top of the toolbar, and Pinkesh can answer any questions you may have. So we don't have any questions yet, but we'll just wait a little bit if anyone would like to ask a question.
We do have a few questions in the chat.
Okay, great.
Okay, so to upgrade, do you mind if I just, I'll just read through the questions and answer them. So to upgrade the P1 RAM, would you add an additional chip, or is there room for only one chip? Full replacement of the chip with the higher spec. So Barry, when you're talking through the chip, I'm assuming you're talking about the memory. So no, unfortunately, there is only one memory module in the P1 Gen 7. So when we talk about upgradability, so if you configure that with a 16 gig LP CAM memory module, and if you would like to upgrade, the original one will become redundant. So at this point in time, our P1 Gen 7 only takes one memory module. I hope that's answered the question. Next question from Willem. What are the warranty periods on the laptops? Very same as our desktops as well. So we can provide up to 5-year on-site Premiere Pro. Okay. I will come back to you, Barry. I'll just read the next question from Steve Robinson. Are any of the P series mobile workstations repairable in the same way that the T14 is? Yes. As I mentioned when I was talking about the P1 Gen 7, when we're talking about repairable, that's something that I would have to look into as to what components are in fact repairable, Steve. We are, I think, over the course of the next couple of months, we'll be releasing more documentation. I believe there is some documentation still available as to what some of the components, and I'll be very happy to share that with you. Okay, so going back, I don't see any more questions. Going back to Barry. Oh, okay, all right, cool. I've answered his question. That's it. I don't see any more questions at this particular point in time.
Great, thank you, Pinkesh. Okay, now we will go on to our Prezi card drawer. So I will now share the wheel. So first, we have 2 cards to give away today. We have a $50 Prezi card voucher and we have a $100. So first we'll spin the wheel for the $50 card. Good. Congratulations. Shane Harvey, well done. You $50 voucher coming your way. And now for the $100 Prezi card. Congratulations, Doug Cockcroft. Very exciting. Okay, so we will send those out to you both. And I would just like to thank you all for attending. And we hope you all found this interesting and informative. And we will be emailing you all a post-webinar survey. So if you could please fill that out, that would be fantastic. We will also be sharing this link to this recording to watch again after the webinar. So on behalf of Lenovo and Ingram Micro New Zealand, we would like to thank you all for attending, and we hope you all have a wonderful week. Thank you.
Thank you all.